Welcome to SVG Europe Audio's IP Audio Forum. I'm Heather McLean, editor at SVG Europe. Today in this event, which is sponsored by Lawo and TSL Products, we'll be hearing from speakers at the forefront of audio over IP, starting with a presentation from Anthony Sachot, Warner Brothers Discovery Director for Audio Technology, and Peter Mercer, Warner Brothers Discovery A1 and Senior Sound Manager for Sports Events, who will be providing insight into the AoIP aspects of Discovery's pan-European IP network, part of its European Technology Transformation Project, which is in the final throes of being built. This is the first time that they have been able to talk publicly about this, which is really exciting. We're very pleased to have them here. Anthony and Pete will then join our amazing chair, Roger Charlesworth, for a broader discussion on AoIP with Alex Judd, Sky Sports Technical Specialist and A1, Peter Walker, Calrec Audio Senior Product Manager, Berny Carpenter, TSL Products Audio Product Manager, and Lawo's Lucas Zwicker, Senior Technical Product Manager for Audio Production. So please use the chat facility at the bottom of the screen to post your questions throughout the discussion, including at the beginning. You must have lots of questions about the Discovery Network, which our speakers and Roger will pick up and answer for you as we go. And now over to Anthony and Pete.
Good afternoon. So this is a quick presentation just to give you a picture of what we've built for our pan-European audio over IP network. So that will be a quick one. No big details in it, but that's to open all the question that you could have on that one. Essentially, where we were, when I joined Eurosport in 2013. We were all baseband, meaning that we had 18 audio production offices across Europe. So we were sending them the audio, the international sound. They were mixing, adding that we were producing the full show in the Paris facility. Then we were sending them by satellite at the end via in H.264 over IP with dedicated lines, but a lot of them through satellite. So we were sending them the picture, international sound. They were mixing their local commentary locally. So usually Yamaha analog mixers, Soundcraft analog mixers, quite discrepancy in terms of mixers. And then they were sending us back the full program, audio only, either by satellite or by audio IP contribution, but really point-to-point contributions. Then we were aggregating all the voices on the picture, delaying the video. We had to delay it, the time to send them the picture, to receive back the program. So we had to delay the video historically by 2.2 seconds, and we were embedding everything on satellite for distribution. So I just put some pictures to see the really old stuff production size that we used to have. Essentially, the challenges and issues that we had quite often some sync issues, because on how the audio was coming, sometimes the latency could move. So we had to align the delays, not all the time, but quite often. We always had that need to delay the video, which was a bit worrying when you want to stick the maximum as you can on the live event. The reliability, because all the live programs were recorded locally on computers, on audio computers, and then were replayed from local. They were slaved over time code to be in sync, but they were replayed locally. So if you lose the connection for any reason with one of the office, we were on silence. We were on silence on the program because we were receiving silence in Paris. We had a lot of reliability issues because of the disparate network. All the network was quite different regarding the different countries. We had a lot of different setups. The local setups were quite complex because they had to switch between the live to the repeats that they were playing. They had to build playlists locally, so that was quite complex. We had it was complex to get also some on-site commentary, because they had to do connections from their office to the event. We didn't have any flexibility in the booth, meaning that it happened sometimes that I remember we had once a UK commentator who was on holidays in Romania, and he had to do a commentary for the British Eurosport market, and it has just been a nightmare to build the contribution line and etc. Same in terms of support. Everything was in the markets. We had to travel all the time. We learned from March 2020 that we can do a lot more without traveling. But yeah, we had a lot of devices on site, so that was quite complex. When we decided to rebuild all our infrastructure, so it was the time to go to an audio over IP infrastructure. We've chosen the Ravenna format because it was compliant with AES-67 and then for the future 2110. Essentially, the choice was between Ravenna and Dante. Dante was not able Dante was only for the local networks where we had, because at the same time Discovery was building is what we call the WAN, is our private network all across Europe. All of the markets are connected at least with a dual 10 gigabyte link to all of the countries. The first aim also, the first idea also was to have a centralized audio core in our data center. At that time, the data center was Paris, where all the playout, all the production was, because then if you have that centralized audio core, the international sound remains all the time with the picture. So you get rid of the sync issues. You have a better quality because the audio doesn't have to travel. If for any reason you lose the connection with the office, which can happen, you can, even with the one that still can happen, you keep at least the international sound. So that's a loss for the viewer, but that's really better than silence. With this centralized audio core, if we lose the connection with one of the office, if we have a remote issue, we can take the control on the mix from anywhere. So markets can be the backup of each other. We can, from the central team in Paris, we can take the control on their mix. We can help them a lot more when they have operational issues, when they have technical issues. We can really take the control on all the systems. Then all the booths are just instead of previously where the audio from the commentary booths were remaining in local, going to the local mixer, and then the full program was traveling back to Paris. Now only the clean voice is traveling back to our data centers, either in London or in Hilversum in the Netherlands. Then all the booths are available on the network. So when our UK commentator is on holidays in Romania, if he has to do any commentary for the UK market, the guy, the audio operator in London just has to say, okay, I will, instead of selecting voiceover booth 3 in Chiswick, I will take voiceover booth 1 in Bucharest, and that's as simple as that. He has to build his mix minus just to send him to send him a talkback and a specific duplex with another commentator or anything, and that's as easy as that. So that's really a big improvement in terms of flexibility and let's say easy work for the operators. Same for the on-site commentary, where commentators are on site. They can connect to our central MCR in Europe. And same as any booth in Europe, the voice is available on the network, so anyone can pick up the voice. And the good thing as well is, as it's multicast, if London wants to use that voice, can use that voice. If at the same time Madrid or Milan, for any reason, wants to use the same commentary, they can. That's like distributed on the network. Then also the good thing is that all the voices are now recorded centrally. So meaning that except during the lives, if we miss the connection, if we have a connection issue with any office, at least the programs are central. It's better for archive, it's better for repeats. That's really a lot more reliable. Same centralized intercom system. We used to have a lot of little islands, analog small intercom systems. Now we have a big centralized intercom system. So any Turkish operator can talk to any on-site commentator, remote commentator, or any booth in Europe, or they can also communicate together as well. This has been a huge improvement in our system. And then automatization process with the control system that we have set up with with this big audio network. We intend to try to automatize a lot of stuff to have less human interaction, meaning that with the same people we can do a lot more. And also we realize that we have less error because everything which is automatized, if the automatization is good, you have less operational errors. That's essentially how we have built it. So we have the two major workspaces, which are London and Paris, where all we have we have four big PCRs. We have in London we have 6 big control rooms as well in Paris, and then we have a lot of control room in the markets: Oslo, Madrid, Milan, London, Warsaw, Munich. We'll have a map on the next slide. Everything, we only have remote systems in the markets for either for the big production rooms, either for the commentary sites, and everything is aggregated against the one and is connected to the audio cores which are in the data center A, which is the Hilversum one in the Netherlands, data center B, which is the London one in Chiswick. Then when everybody can work for all our playout channels, you have, I have an issue on my logo, but Eurosport 1, Eurosport 2 linear channels, all the digital channels, we have more than 150 digital channels to be able to provide, as we are, for example, currently doing for Roland Garros, where we are showing all the courts on digital with commentary, all the Discovery Channel, and some also other all sports events for other channels, part of the group, such as Canal 9, Canal 5, TV Norge in Norway, CNN, now CNN, since we are Warner Bros. Discovery. How we've built it. So as I was saying, 2 big data centers, one in the Netherlands, one in London, to have a geographical difference. If for any reason we were losing one of the data center, we are able to connect all that's a big win with the IP system, is that if, for example, usually Munich is connected to the Hilversum data center. If we lose the Hilversum data center for any reason, we are able to reconnect the production room, because it's only remote. We are able to reconnect our all the systems to the London data center. We have a difference between the backends. We have backend and devices available in the data centers, and we have remote systems which are in the markets able to connect to each of the to one data center or the other. So we have 10 what we call the workspaces. The workspaces are the markets where we have production rooms, meaning Kauna, Vizarti, Live Touch, really a big production room. Then in addition to that, we have eight markets doing only commentary on the audio. In total, that's about 30 PCRs in Europe. That's 45 audio suites to insert the local commentary for all the channels. We have 11 audio suites dedicated to digital mix monitoring. When we've built the system, the digital commentaries were supposed to be completely automatized. We realized when building it, when starting to pass over the systems to the operators, that we had to have dedicated rooms when you are monitoring, producing commentaries for at the same times for, let's say, 15 or 20 concurrent events. You need to have someone to be able to talk to the commentators, to tell them, okay, now it's finished. Okay, you have an issue on your clean feed or anything. Okay, let me have a look at it. To coordinate all the commentators. So in the larger markets, we are doing it from what we call our DMRs, digital mix rooms, where, because in the biggest markets where they do a lot, they have a big volume of digital production. In the other markets, they are doing it from the other audio switch, which are dealing with the linear commentaries. To do that digital commentary, we have a software platform built with the Llama software, the Llama Atomic software, and we are able to go up to 350 concurrent mix. And the good thing in that way is that if we have, for any reason, let's say for the Olympics, we'll see which volume we are going to produce for the Paris 2024. But if we have to increase the capacity of that platform, that's installing software, or opening new machines, launching the software, and then the programming is available on the network. So that's quite easy to increase. So that gives us a lot of flexibility on that one. We have as well a backup AutoMix platform. We faced some issues during Tokyo because of some of the IT process. So we built a backup AutoMix platform which is based on hardware, on Lawo, with Lawo mixers. We have in Europe around 120 physical booths across 18 sites. The physical booths are built with, that's quite simple, two big screen monitors, so they can have, the commentators usually want to have two different pictures, sometimes the linear channel, the full event, and they have a classic commentary unit. The good thing with the audio over IP on these commentary units is that previously you had to have all the cables going out of this commentary unit, going to audio distributors, distributed to one mixer, two mixers, third mixer in regarding the number of channels you were producing in one country. Now that you have RG45, you have two because of the 2022-7, but you have two RG45 connected to the commentary unit, put it on the network, and that's done. So that's really easy to set up and to support. And the good thing regarding what we had previously is that we have now, I'm looking for my word, sorry. We have all the same commentary units in all our booths in Europe. We also have a big pool of, let's say, mobile units being able to do SIP over 4G or Wi-Fi for the on-site events, but they are all the same. They are all the same units. That's ETA scope team units. So the commentators, when they go on site, they have the same commentary unit as when they are in the booth. For them, that's really better because they are not technical, and working with them every day, they are really not technical. So you have to really make them confident with the system. So when they have all the time the same unit, that's really better. And then we've built a remote commentary platform. We are able to receive up to 246 concurrent connections. That's over public internet. We send them we have a VTech encoding platform to send on a laptop connected on a classic public internet to send them the clean feed, and we get back their voice by a SIP connection, which same as any other commentary booth on the network. Their voice is available with their name with codec in our control system, but they are available everywhere. And biggest challenge on that one was to have a low latency because we don't want to delay our video anymore. So really the biggest challenge was to be able to send the commentator the clean feed, that he can decode it, see it on his laptop, and send us back the voice. We have spent quite a lot of time and do a really big work on that. And we are now able to do the full trip with around 300 milliseconds, which is, to be honest, quite impressive. That it has been really a huge work, and we are still working almost every day to try to improve it. But that's the famous map. So we have our two data centers, one in London, one in it's named Amsterdam, but it's in Hilversum. Then with the biggest workspace are London and Paris. Then we have Madrid, Lisbon, Milan, Munich, Copenhagen, the four Nordic countries, and then the eastern countries. We have been for the recent events in Europe forced us to close our Moscow office. We are still producing Russian language because we have 12 markets, 12 Russian speaking markets. So we are still producing Russian for them, but it's all over remote systems. That's pictures of our data centers. This is the one from Hilversum. This is a picture of the production workspace. So they are, in terms of audio, they are based around MC Square 56 mixers. We have a lot of green screens. So we had to do all the connections. Same, all the studios are working, let's say, in a standalone mode, and we are using Lawo power cores to act as gateways because the microphones are still baseband. But then each studio is a local island, and presents all his sources and gets all his IFBs on the AS67, meaning that if the Munich team wants to have Alex Correggia for the tennis and he is in Madrid, he goes to the green screen in Madrid, I can connect the Madrid green screen on our Munich SCR as if it was the Munich studio. That's the connection is really the same, so that's very powerful and flexible. This is a small commentary site. This is the one from Hungary, for example. So we can see. Oops, sorry. So we can see here the scoop team unit, the two screens on which they are looking at the clean feed. This is probably is linear feedback because I can see a player promo on that one, and usually they have computers to have all their tools, and then we can see just this is one small mixing space. They receive a multi view with all the clean feeds and their local. These are their local off-air returns. They usually have the playlist and they have the VIS tool to control the VIS tool and the Ruby desk to control the audio core. But the audio core, that's only control. The audio core is in the data center. That was really important for us to keep, even if everything, and to be honest, when we see the result of the auto mix that we have, for example, with the Llama for the digital, the result is absolutely impressive. That's very good. So some of the operators say that it's better than manual mixing when it remains on, let's say, simple mixing, one international sound and up to 3 or 4 voices. Then if you have to switch from sources, you need to have someone. But we really wanted to keep the local operators because they keep the link with the commentators. When a commentator comes at the office in a booth, he needs someone to say, okay, my headset is broken. Where do I see it? No one is better to hear if the commentators has an issue, if he says mistake on air or anything. If I listen to Hungarian, I'm not able to hear any issue. If there's a routing issue for any reason, and if a basketball commentary is going on a tennis game, I will probably not be able to hear it. But the Hungarian operator is able to hear it and could probably fix it locally, or at least warn us on the central side. So that was very important to us to keep all our local operators. This is one of the what we call the DMR digital mixing room, where it's only monitoring. They have a little control over the Llama the Llama AutoMix interface, but they are not using it so much. Essentially, they do it through our control system. They can do all the routing through our control system, which is BNCS from Atos. But essentially, their biggest work is to line up the commentators and to control the program outputs. How we manage all these streams, because that's quite a huge network. We are talking about 80,000 source streams, and we have around 50,000 stream destinations, which is quite a lot. That's as written a bit more than 130 and most receivers in total. Our network orchestrator is Nevian Video iPass. The choice was made by video team, audio team, and all the architecture team. And most control is on about 70% of the devices, and we have specific drivers for all the other devices which are not NMOS compliant. We try to choose the devices which are NMOS compliant because that's a lot less work. That's really easier for us. But as I was saying, we really need to be careful to the operators, and if the technical side must not be the only way to choose a device or a system. You really need to get the feedback from the operators, because if you choose for them a very nice engineering system that they can't use, that's probably useless. So we really need to be careful to that. The control system is Atos BNCS, and we are working with their packager system, which I will show you in the next slide. That's like a virtual embedder. I used to work 20 years ago with embedder, de-embedders, and etc. That's almost the same. The only thing is that it's just like a database where I know this is my source and this will be my endpoint, my destination, and then Video iPass can do the connections. Everything is based on 2 channel streams to enable enable the maximum capacity of routing and be able to exchange all the streams. We have local PTP generators in all the workspace. All the offices, they all have a PTP generator to be able to send and receive the ES67 streams. And as I was saying, we have a concept of source packaging. So when you have a source package, you have all the videos available for that event, and all the audios, all the commentaries, program, mix, IFBs, conferences, everything is contained and is in that source package. This is the one. So this is an example. This is an example of a source package where we can have 4 levels of video. So here we have one main and one backup UHD receivers, and then all the languages that are doing commentary on that event. So we can see the Polish, the Italians, the Czechs, the Romanians. So they insert their commentary source on the event, and then they come and add, at that point, they come and add an audio processor, which in addition to the clean voices that we have, this is the outputs from the, from the commentary unit. And then we have, when we insert an auto mix on that voice, we'll get the international sound coming from the receiver. We'll add the voice which is there, and we get it as program mix. So then I will have what we call the tag Romanian program mix, and the playout. On the playout side, I will call for a Romanian program mix. If I have it, I will take it, and then video iPass will route the output of this auto mix to the flex playout. And if we have substitution rules, meaning that if I remove this Romanian program mix, it will switch to international sound, and we have 3 levels of substitution for that one. What challenges did we face? I should probably have written more than one slide, because we faced quite a lot of challenges, issues, and we still face them. That's our everyday life. Essentially, the latency on the European network. We had to add some buffer. For example, when we add our Moscow office, the latency with the Moscow office was 80 milliseconds. When we are in London, I have a few milliseconds. We have a few milliseconds of latency. So we can't set all the buffers on all the mixers to, let's say, 100 milliseconds. So we had to retime. We had to retime at the input of the data center. At the entry door, let's say, we had to retime our commentary sources so we can have the same buffer. We have 20 milliseconds of buffer on all the mixer inputs in the data center. As it was not enough for the Moscow office, we had to retime the streams coming from Moscow, for example, to before entering, let's say, the data center world. Currently, we still have to support both platforms. IP not on the audio, not on the commentary side, because we have moved it 3 years ago already. All the commentary production is based on audio over IP, but all the linear playout, for example, is still on the legacy system. That means a lot of adaptation. That's a lot of blocking rules and bottlenecks. So that's a very complex thing. For the operators and all the people working on the system, we have moved from a dedicated model, meaning that the Romanian operators knew he had Romanian boost 1, 2, 3, and 4, and they were only for him, and they were always available for him, meaning that if he wanted to tell to his commentator, okay, go to boost 2, he knew that boost 2 was available. Now, as we are sharing everything, and that's better for everybody, but then that implies to book everything. So that it has really been a big change for the operators to have to book their system. If I want to use that auto mix process, I need to book it. If I want to use that remote commentary codec, I need to book it. So that's very important, because and then all the bookings is working with the programming system and with the control system, with the BNCS control system, and then with all the playout systems, meaning that if I don't book my commentator, if I don't confirm my commentator with the equipment, with the auto mix, it will not be routed at the end. So that's really there's really a big automation workflow on that. So that it has really been a big change. So we are sharing resources. We have multiple users, meaning that the voiceover boost 2 from Romania could be used by a UK operator. So we need to be very careful when we change some configuration on the booth that someone else is not using it. So this has really been a huge change for the operators. We had some we had some delays in the vendor's delivery, so we had to build some temporary solution. Building temporary solution means dual training for the operators, dual support. Yeah, it's quite that part is quite painful. We had technical limitation. We faced it during our Tokyo during the Tokyo Olympics. We had built the Automix platform was built on VMs, on virtual machines. When the load came at a very big level, we faced some issue on the network on the virtual network interfaces, and we started to have some issues, meaning that we had clicks on the output. The virtual interface was not able to support so much audio streams. And if you have a latency on your packet when you are doing when you are filling an Excel cell, then you have a delay. If you have a delay on the packet on your audio, then you have a click, which is not really the same. We had to deal also with all the endpoint connections and manage all the vendors' compatibilities, which even if with NMOS it's getting better, NMOS Ravenna it's getting better and better, but you still have some little discrepancy, which sometimes can create some issues. So I was talking with for the NMOS driver, some of the devices are NMOS controllable, some are not, so we had to develop some specific drivers. We had also one of our issue was the dual subscription issue on one interface, on one network interface. If you subscribe to upstream, you can't subscribe to it a second time. So and that's an issue because on our audio mixers, we can have what we call the OS lines. So on where we route a source package, we could have one source package with the source, international source is taking decoder 1, audio pair 1. If for any reason we have to subscribe a second time to that specific decoder 1, audio pair 1 on a second input of the mixer, it will go to silence. So we had to sort this out with NAT switches, but that's another layer of equipment. Essentially, that's we faced a lot, and we sorted a lot of them, but that's the main challenge that we faced. What we achieved, just a quick one on the numbers, because to be honest, they were quite impressive, and we were absolutely proud of it. During the last Beijing Olympics, we did almost 5,000 commentary sessions over 2 weeks and a half, 2,600 for our digital channels, 2,300 for the linear channels. It has been a huge work, and everybody, all the operation teams, the support team have been a lot involved, and that they have done a big work on that. So that's why I'm sharing these numbers, because we are very proud of that. That's the only numbers I can give, because now it becomes really business as usual. We are currently broadcasting all the courts from Roland Garros, the French Open, on I think we are at 16 or 17 different languages on the main courts, and then the commentator booking the local editorial team can pick any of the courts and add their commentary on it, because one of their local heroes is playing on court 17, on court 12, so they can pick any of the courts and add their language on it. We are doing it on the Giro as well. That's now all the digital, this flexible commentary system is available for all our digital events, and that's now that becomes really business as usual. That's it. Pete, do you want to go on?
Yeah, I will. I need to now share my screen. One moment. There we go. Hopefully you'll see my screen. I mean, I have a different perspective. I've not worked for Eurosport that long. I've only been staff actually fairly recently, and there we go. So when I first got introduced, I was freelance, sound supervisor or guarantee, and I got a phone call. I think he's on this actually. John Sweeney said, "Pete, I've got 3 weeks work for you doing some testing." And okay, fine. That and that was over doing it in we had a test lab at the time, and it was just to to kind of test this over 3 years ago, to test the concepts of sort of over the WAN and that sort of latency in which products and which vendors we may have trouble with, and see which ones kind of where the spec was and how true it was, and because it was all kind of new and there wasn't that many case studies to draw from, so that was quite and then I went away, and then I got another phone call saying, we haven't got any staff here in London. Can you come and help us commission and prepare some configurations? And I said, yeah, why not? So I came back, and I slowly but surely was there more and more often, doing user acceptance tests, trying to help, the MCR, monitoring and the voice over boost, just having someone on the ground who knew the devices and to try and to get them up and running, because there was no actual staff, because the Eurosport had always relied on a previous site and the support team to provide those facilities. And then there was user acceptance tests as well for those devices to make sure they sort of kind of were up to full delivery, and that took a while actually, because there was, as Anthony's slide, there was actually a lot of delays with certain deliveries, and for a variety of reasons, and so actually that took a while actually, and then also got another got another sort of responsibility, sort of still at freelance this time, to try and build a remote studio solution, bearing in mind that even the sites are in the workspace, they're technically a remote studio, even though it's in our infrastructure. And how would we manage that, and how would we actually deliver that? And that became a bit of a sort of quite an investment really for my time at that point. And I started being around a lot more in this project. And over the last 2 years, I've also been helping plan external productions, training the markets, managing all the operations in London. And last year, I took a full-time role as senior sound manager, tech manager for sport events. And yeah, there we go. And so I'm actually currently at Roland Garros, by the way. So apologise. I'm actually in the heat of battle. And I guess for me, it was quite an interesting. 23 years as freelance. Why did I want to change my position? Well, for me, it was good to be involved with something new. It was good to have a change. I think when you've done the same thing for quite a while, it was something that was interesting to me. I love the ambition of the project. I mean, that was quite key for me. It was nobody was as brave as this. It was very, very brave, and it was a growing company, and there was lots of nice, talented people, and the company seemed to be absorbing some of the right people. So it was something I was quite keen to be involved with. So it was all very positive, although a lot of work to do. And so hopefully you can see the slide okay. So this is very crude, but gives you an idea. I mean, it's a bit more detailed than Anthony's concept, but it just shows you the sort of the dotted lines. Just means that these are possibilities of connections. That a console can talk to any crate, and any crate effectively can talk to any site studio. It's a bit more complicated than that, but effectively, we have two big routers that talk to each other. It's a big system. And we've got quite a lot of read or talkback frames as well. That also, again, it's all IP audio flows in the 2-channel mode, as Anthony said. And so, we can bulk those together, and we can make various routes like you would with a jack field, and you can make those relationships. And obviously, sometimes you need to do some control data too between the console and. But we've had to. That took a bit of time to get that right. Again, due to the sort of latency on from the workspaces to the data centers. But these are all problems we have overcome, and the Discovery network is impressive. It's it really is. It's quite amazing, really, when you think about the amount of traffic and the amount of bandwidth that it has to handle. It is really quite impressive. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, really what that this kind of overview is. And then just take a bit more detail on sort of the project I was in. And again, this is kind of quite a general sort of view of it. Obviously, it can be a lot more detailed, but the Discovery sort of workspace is where the audio console is. And they've got various signals going in and out of that. Actually, there is actually signals going in and out of that because it has local I/O. So actually, I probably should have done another line of red there for an IP audio. Obviously, got talkback frame for mixed minus feeds, IFBs, and also just general signals that you send in and out of the Readle. and all your program outputs where that kind of gets all contained in the DSP there is presented on the data center for transmission, but also from those signals for like foldback, and also the mics coming back from the studio site or any discrete audio signals. Oh, sorry, pardon me. All come from an IP gateway in the studio site. Sometimes the studio site is also in the workspace, but not all are. Like we've got some in London which are scattered around the UK. They're not actually near where the London Tech Hub are. So that's why they can be removed, and that's what the WAN enables us to do, and we can send media signals over our media network, and it's an IP gateway, so it's 2110, and it's across 2 switches effectively. So there's redundancy there, and for this case, for what we use actually is a power core for every site, and that actually, depending on the site, either spits out analog audio and AES to get signals in and out of the system. And on most of those sites, we've got a standalone sort of belt pack solution. Again, there's some variations for some of the sites, but this is more or less the template everywhere. And the same sort of network is also where we get tallies, and we send return videos, and we get to receive the audio to the camera. On some of the less stable sites, I don't mean that really, but more like smaller sites probably, we often also put in camera receivers, which as well just allows us, if the site is not necessarily robust, but the machinery is not quite as robust, and there is potential of losing PTP, which we have to have at these sites to enable synchronous audio. We can also get the audio back over the cameras. We don't generally do that on very stable Discovery-owned sites, more on sort of like I call them micro sites, where it's less supported, I'd probably say. And that kind of is not just as any other studio really. It's a gateway, an audio in and out box like any other wall box. It just happens to be sometimes thousands of miles away, or sometimes a couple of hundred miles away, like in London, but to Heathrow. So it's quite impressive. The latency is uber amazingly quick. There's not a lot. You can't do in-ear mixing from here. So we do actually do that all in so we have a little setup where we send signals in for local mixing as well. So we've modified this along the way, and I would say it's actually quite a nice, tidy solution that we've got now that works really, really well, and that we don't have any complaints from that really. It does some sort of local mixing. There's a program mix which comes from there, and also some talkback signals, and it all does this local ducking within the console, within that sort of power core. So I know Anthony's also put some of these in as well, but it's also kind of unique to me really. The standard is new, and I know it maybe is a standard, but it's open to interpretation, and that's been quite interesting to see that journey for all the vendors, and they've had to sort of contend with that, and and interpretation of those standards has taken a while. Version 1, we had version 0 of a lot of these when they first came out 3 years ago, and it's really, really developed as it come along. So it's really interesting, the journey, and it's kind of quite amazing how far we've come when I look back. But yeah, but then like all IP challenges, endpoint connections and vendor compatibility issues that we've had, as Anthony pointed out, NMOS control is about 70%, but we've had to really contend with the different varieties of those in our system. Whereas maybe on other systems, there's maybe it will come through a gateway, and there is local IP switching, but there is more static routes inside of that. We do try and do endpoint to endpoint connections, and that has been quite a challenge, really. I think, Sean, you refer in your question. Did I spot that? Hi, Sean. Do you retime? Yeah, we do retime some signals that come from far out. For example, we actually retime all the studio IP sources. For the buffering, yeah, and also for the boost, yeah, and so they're presented with the retimed with the new PTP timestamp. It probably works for some devices, but it's to keep that consistency, and so then that's been real quite key, important. So that any internal, again, also for the big events, also we bring all those signals in and we sort of retime them in the data center. So effectively, they don't really behave like external sources now. They've been sort of represented in the network, and sort of therefore behave quite nicely. Yes, so moving on. And this is a drawing. I can't take any credit for this. Is Neil Croghan, who might be even on the call, and John. My team. That they were responsible for all the on-site staff at the Olympics, and my boss obviously can't not mention him, Dave Rolson. They put on a quite on-site is quite a significant facilities on site that they have to bring back to us. And Beijing 2020, not that complex in terms of what production are doing. It's just mix zones, presentation positions. We've got mobile sort of teams going out with mobile LTE devices. We've got some on-site commentary. What we did on this one, though, we did have on readout panels on site, which was quite cool. And again, it's because we extended the WAN to Beijing. And so therefore it behaved like any other site, which was pretty cool. So production and engineering could, they talk all the way back to the data center, and that's where the audio comes through from. It's actually quite incredible, really. We had lots of shared positions, and that's kind of all the markets. I think I put 12 down, but probably wasn't 12. But they just rotate. There's resources that people can use, and that's kind of where Eurosport is quite unique, really, is that it's not necessarily the production value, it's the resources that are available to the whole teams and all the markets. And that's the challenge. Trying to get the mass and the scale of what we do. It's not necessarily always the content. And like as I said, Beijing became another site, and it was only because the Discovery network is so robust and powerful, and that's in a bit more detail. But you can see like some sites, some had dedicated resources built, but then a lot were these hub resources, and they were made available for anyone to use. Within our internal teams, there were our resources. Effectively, it was our on-site Discovery presence. There are our facilities, that can be used for anyone of our team, as long as they book them, of course. And but all the feeds came through the IBC. There we go. I'm currently at Roland Garros, so trying to help out the team here. So I did this drawing just to give people an overview of that and what to expect. Again, not that complicated. We've got an OB provider providing some kits, but technically it's Discovery on site. It's just an extension of us. We've got the green screen. Actually, you can go into a bit more detail. There we go. Green screen for all the sort of the virtual studio, studio things we do with the Cube, for instance. Also, but any other market can also take that. So it's a bookable resource. Same as the Whisper camera, can be booked by any of the productions. And we have these things called CCD feeds, which are like enhanced digital feeds with a whole production team behind them. So they kind of rotate whoever, Mats Wilander happens to be there most of the time. But yeah, so it just kind of rotates depending on which team needs to use that person at that time. We've got a commentary box, which is generally for an international market. And then we've got a Spanish commentary box. And then we've got some RF cameras running around and stuff. So again, it's not necessarily massive, but the complicated bit is this bit really, and how we manage all the markets and how that interfaces. And that's where we get great value by having the WAN sort of extended and available on our system. And it's just resources. We don't have to downlink the signal or decode the signal lots of times. It's presented either once or twice in our data centers, which is the beauty of what we do. This gives us a little bit more detail. But, again, not that complicated. A couple of microphones, top mic on a camera, gets embedded and sent. But it can be available for all these markets, and these are all the active markets that are taking Roland Garros. And we do have what is kind of event sort of switching area. We have it for big events. We're trying it as well for this event. It's like we call it the Bocket at the Olympics, but really it's an event switching center, for want of a better word. And that's just a kind of a midpoint. The referee, I like to call it, who then can be the midpoint, because really a lot of the time it goes to whoever's providing our connectivity to the on-site presence, and it goes all the way. These are permanent links, really. Obviously, they can be switched because they might hit a router in between, but really presented, they are. It's presented to us as a sort of single source. And the complicated bit is, for example, the IFBs, the talent. They're the same IFB for all these markets. They don't get switched. Just the mix minuses get switched because it's a shared system. for example. Lessons for me personally, because I like to sort of bring it back to me, because it's kind of my journey. I feel like this has been a bit of a journey the last 3 years. It really has. One thing I have learned, television principles still apply, just the connectivity changes. And I think, sometimes we get bamboozled by the technology. No, TV's always been TV, in my opinion, and it still hasn't changed. Workflows, I never said that word before I started this working here, but it was just doing the job. And it was, but for me, simple is best. Everyone knows where they are with simple, but I think sometimes we've the new technologies confuse that a little bit. IT and broadcast attitudes are different, but they can be aligned. It's just taking a bit of time to get there. And change does take time. I think, we're in quite new ground, even though things are standardized. They're not I say, established. And I think that's kind of where we're at with IP. And everyone can learn, even old people. So it's, I think, we just have to take some time getting so familiar with it. And we're in a transition, I think. I mean, and some people, it can be daunting, but it's not that complicated. It's just different. That's me done. Thanks.
Great. Fantastic. Well, that's really amazing. I tell you what I'd like to do, if we can. I think we have some specific questions for you guys, but I'd like to open up this discussion and then maybe come back to them. We have some in the chat, and I have jotted down some. But I think the big thing about this is there are two things. Is you're kind of replacing the legacy audio infrastructure around mixing with a unified IP infrastructure. And then that unified infrastructure is being spread over the WAN. And I guess that sort of IP going around the console bubble is something that's probably the thing that's happening now. And I wonder, first of all, with Lucas, with Pete Walker, what are we seeing in terms of what customers are doing? This idea of having IP, having one control and discovery protocol. Where are we in this process, and what are the pain points? And anybody who wants to jump in on that. Lucas, there you go.
Yeah, I'm happy to pick up on that. Thank you, Roger. And first of all, also thank you, Anthony and Pete, for that great presentation and introduction to the project. I mean, we as Lawo, and also myself personally, we've been lucky to be part of that journey, like from the beginning. It's not that I'm seeing Anthony the first time here. And it obviously has been a challenge. I mean, when clients are trying to lift the bar, what Discovery and Eurosport try to do, it is obviously always a challenge, and not everything went flawlessly. And we had to learn from Eurosport had to learn from us. And while it's been a great journey, I think the first that we should underline here, and this is what we can see, is that it actually works. So we've been in, first of all, Eurosport and Discovery and DB Broadcast and everybody who worked on this project, they've been able to make it work. And I mean, that's really, really great and really, really impressive. It took us all quite a lot of effort, but I think it was worth it, and it's really super cool. The nice thing, obviously, about it is that we have many other clients that are thinking into the same direction, like having centralized processing resources in a data center, but still serve a lot of remote locations. What goes hand in hand with that is not only the challenges about audio and video transport, but also the challenge about control in general. And I mean, we have like these standards like NMOS, etc. in place, but there are also vendor-specific things that need to be solved, and that Eurosport pushed us to solve, like console surface to core connectivity that needs to be fully layer 3 routable. And I mean, we have consoles sitting all the way up to Oslo that are connected to either Hilversum or London. And so that's obviously something that Eurosport were now the first to do on really big scale. We never had a client who was doing that in this scale ever before. And then Eurosport turned up and said, well, we want to do that. And not only once, but like with how many consoles do we have? 24 in total, something like that. So that's, yeah. And I mean, I can perfectly understand that Pete kind of, yeah, I like what you said in your summary, that like television principles still apply. And I absolutely agree to that. And I mean, that's a big part of what we have as a challenge here, right? That we still want to apply television principles, and we also don't want to flip everyone's world who actually has to work on it. And Anthony, that's what you said earlier when we synced up on that, like operators and all our staff, like your staff, they still have to have a workable system that is manageable. And that is like the big challenge. And that we hopefully, and I think it's been successful also together with the BNCS people to achieve that. So it doesn't matter if it's a baseband or an IP system in the back, like it should behave and work the same. And that obviously, again, boils down to the control aspect that we've learned a lot from Eurosport, that is now going into new project development as well, that is going into a new project like Home that are even better supporting these kind of setups and applications.
Great. Pete Walker, you want to talk about this? I think there are a couple aspects of it. There's the WAN aspect, and I want to come back to that. And, you know, Lucas, you mentioned you're used to having the console and the crate in the same subnet. You know, now they don't have to. But this sort of thing of wrapping the console in a pure IP infrastructure and one IP infrastructure, not multiples. Pete, what are you kind of finding with the sort of integrations you're doing now and with launching the sort of pure IP cores?
Yeah, I mean, we have to cover lots of different scales. So, you know, the likes of that we've just been talking about there, that's an ambition that a lot of people are taking on board now quite seriously. But we also have to focus on, we also have to make things easy for the smaller scale productions and stuff. And what we're finding is that installations are getting easier. They're needing less hand-holding now because people are getting skilled in the right areas. We're finding the control elements are getting better. Our UI is getting better, making things easier for customers. When we're talking about control protocols and unifying, the more people that adopt ISO 4, ISO 5, the better it is for everybody. But that's not the end of it. You know, there's still additional layers of control, still additional layers of proprietary control in there that needs to be provisioned for, especially in SDN networks. There's a lot of stuff that we need to be able to move around as well as the media. But the really good thing about the standardized IP approach is that it's scalable, not only in terms of capacity, but also in terms of features and functionality. So we can enhance it and build on it without throwing away the lower levels of the proven layers. And we can swap protocols out where we need to get the right levels of interoperability. So, you know, we've got a platform now where we're just moving forwards. You know, I think ISO 7 offers a lot of attractive potential. If more vendors, I'm starting to see more demand for it and more uptake for it. I think that would be a really good way to get the, you know, those common control protocols. People want to control different vendors' mic preamps using a single work surface or whatever. I think there's a lot of potential to be had for that. And I think that's the next level we're going to get to. But adopting that, you know, there's no real additional expense to the customer. That's just going to come along as part of your existing infrastructure that we're building on at the moment. It's just basically it's just a software update, and we can unleash new potential.
Yeah. Bernie, you want to jump on this in terms of both sort of creating products and integrating solutions? You're kind of TSL is in the middle of this in a couple of different levels, but where do you think we are on this path?
I think firstly it was a really interesting case study, and it's in my mind at least that doing what they've done over that wide area network. It's a different ball game to doing something in a local facility. And I mean, if you do it over that scale, then I think it shows that it's also the possibilities within smaller local facilities are that it's all there, it's all doable. Obviously, the products that we make from an audio point of view, we're on the edge, and we need to be able to talk to receive signals, to be controlled by external control systems. And that's where we are seeing more and more adoption of NMOS, more and more successfully. And just like Pete said, there is less hand-holding needing to be done from a manufacturer point of view. People are, if not getting all the way themselves, they're getting most of the way, and we can help them tweak their setup. And also on the control side, where we have NMOS integration as well. And we're seeing more and more adoption, and the more people that do adopt it in terms of manufacturers, the better it will be for the end customer.
Yeah, absolutely. So moving on to the WAN thing, this seems to be this is something that we've kind of been moving towards. And Alex, on your side, I think this is something that we're kind of seeing parts of, right? And certainly virtualizing commentary. I know I always talk about you guys doing volleyball with commentators in Stanford, Connecticut for games in Tokyo, and then sending them back to us to watch. Talk about the WAN thing from your perspective.
I mean, I think from my perspective, I think it's obviously something that needs to kind of be, it's a massive implementation really to actually do what the guys have achieved firstly, really, with the WAN. I think it's such a huge investment to be able to actually deliver what they've done so successfully. With that, I think also the industry, is probably grateful for all of the efforts that have gone into that firstly, and the learnings that have come from that. But yeah, in terms of kind of like our integration of that currently and our infrastructure at Sky, it's kind of, we do things obviously slightly differently in terms of firewalling, bringing circuits in, and the nature of how we run our productions obviously as kind of similar but very kind of different in terms of the remote production side of it. There are obviously huge kind of scale spikes in terms of how that works, that is slightly different. But I think like the WAN for how we would utilize that, I think going forwards would be to effectively just open up like circuits so that you could actually bring more in. I think that's something that's really key to kind of being able to do larger scale productions. I think in some respects, I think it really has probably given value to the workflows at Discovery, and something that I think could benefit in terms of how remote productions are done. So extending the network so that you actually bring sources in as inherently part of your facility. I think that's a very useful kind of way of doing things rather than always firewalling. So I think there's definitely a benefit to be able to do that.
Yeah. And how do you, I mean, in terms of sort of unified IP infrastructure within the facility for audio, do you see you're moving in this direction? sort of shared resources? And
well, I mean, at the moment, obviously, in terms of kind of how we currently work, it's we've got all of our kind of fixed workflows, and I think it's kind of something that I think is probably, you know, a aspiration to be able to do that. But also, I think the key thing for me in terms of like what I'm thinking about is just ensuring that the operational aspects of that is kind of kept simplified as much as it can be, because we've got a lot to deal with and contend with already, where we just need to kind of make sure that kind of transition piece, if and when is actually smooth in terms of operations, because it's busy.
Well, and there's a question too of, and we don't get into it today, but you know, all of this is being virtualized, but it's being virtualized within Eurosport's own infrastructure. And the question is, do you do that, or do you just go push it into the cloud and do all the same stuff in the cloud and then just bring that down to galleries?
Good debate.
Okay. Well, we're not going to do that today because we don't have time. But I want to come back to you guys, Pete Mercer and Anthony, a little bit about some questions that I have and what some people have been asking about too, which is the sort of, and we can start with either one, but the sort of role of AI and automation, and how do you transition toward Atmos production? And you know, a lot of us are very involved in doing multi-channel audio. Certainly, Alex is. You know, my colleagues over here are. You know, how does this infrastructure then grow to support multi-channel audio? And in a way, are some of your solutions sort of, if you can figure out how to scale them in the specific instances, then it would seem that you ought to be able to scale them very quickly after you develop solutions. But you want to talk about automation and AI, and then we kind of can expand to Atmos. We flip a coin. Who wants to?
I'll deal with multi-channel audio if you like, because I have background in it. But so it's not, we don't do it per se, but it doesn't mean that we won't do it. And again, we just need to, you know, the system that we have, it can be changed and developed. We've got a good relationship with those vendors. So we do think that we could, if we needed to do that, we could scale to that and build to that, and just integrate it. Not without difficulty, but it's just IP flows, and therefore it's just relationships and devices understanding each other and communicating. So it's, rather than being a 2-channel flow, which we have, it'll be maybe a different kind of flow, whatever that may be.
Well, but Pete, a lot of what you're doing is you're taking an international feed and you're putting commentary on it, right?
Correct, yeah.
Right. So who cares whether that's 2-channel or 514? What's the, other than a bandwidth difference, is that a huge difference?
Well, no, and it depends on what your focus is. But I mean, obviously, Dolby Atmos can do more than just that, right? So there's other possibilities with Atmos in the future. So or even now, in fact. So there's reasons to be not just ahead of the curve or try and be not blue sky thinking, but at least ambitious in our connectivity. We can also potentially be ambitious with our deliveries as well. So I don't think that has necessarily, from my perspective, gone away. It's just obviously there needs to be a contract that needs that, or needs to be a desire for a deliverable that needs that, and that will form our business. But I think we've got the real a core system and a solution that can grow from that. We've come to kind of it's not basic by no means, but it's a 2-channel system, but we can accommodate, I think, a greater needs as they should be required. I think that's my perspective on it.
Yeah, the number of channels per stream could grow. We are looking at what we could do if we had to produce any multi-channel or Atmos programs. The number of channels per stream could go up. Also, all our 2-channel streams are They are PTP time stamped when they land in the data center. So multi-channel could live in the data center on a two-channel stream model. So that's we're working.
Well,
we look at.
Okay, there you said it though, Anthony. That's the thing about your model is really at the remote commentary position. I'm hearing sort of a proxy, and then my audio is getting added in the data center to the real program, right? So why can't I just hear a two-channel down mix, and then at the data center you're putting my commentary into the real 514? So
for sure, if we had to produce Atmos, I would not send Atmos to the the on-site commentary.
Absolutely,
so that would be a down. That would be.
But if you look at it that way, and you say the only place we have to support Atmos really is in the data center, and then everything else we have really kind of fits into that solution. I hope everyone's listening. Then,
we had a question on that from Sean as well, who was saying if we had to retime everything, the events and etc. All the events that we receive are received in the data centers controlled by the MCR. So everything is retimed at that stage because that's coming through decoder, satellite, fibers, or any contribution feeds. And then the only thing we retime is the voice of the commentators who are coming from the offices. But that's it. And then everything is in the data center. When the Hungarian operator does his mix, the mix physically is in the data center. The audios remain there. He only has monitoring at his office.
There you go.
Yeah. To jump on that, I mean, at the end of it, that's all about the beauty of what we've built here, right? So we build an IP system where we're using software-defined processors, and that also ties into what Peter mentioned earlier. We have the luxury of actually going into that direction just by software upgrades, by using multiples of those stereo channels that are anyway time aligned thanks to synchronous streaming, and then jump on the Atmos topic without even having to pull additional wires. Okay, some speakers on the ceiling, but that's kind of about it. And even for all of your commentary positions, it's not a big of a change. It's
well, again, particularly if you just listen to a down mix in the commentary.
Exactly. Yeah.
Position. Exactly. There you go. Hey, Nuno. Nice to see you. Nuno did a pretty good job of scaling up to 514. Anyway, talk about AI and automation. I guess, you mentioned, Anthony, you have 350 or more instances of Llama. You can add more Llama sort of what I guess I would call automated mixing. Where do you see that role of sort of software defined mix assist, and also I guess what I would call versioning, where it's a sort of unattended system? And do you see that as you guys continue to scale, or do you see that as sort of more that you could do in that direction?
In terms of software-based mixer, that will happen. The mixers we are currently using are already, they are physical boxes, but that's processors inside, and that's almost already a software mixer that can be pushed probably in the future to VMs or in the cloud. The cloud stuff is always, that would be another debate, because you still have to push it to the cloud, you still have to receive it in terms of synchronization, latency, and etc. That will give us a lot of challenges. My camera is doing weird stuff. Sorry. In terms of
psychedelic.
In terms of auto mixing, that's currently we can use it to do versioning. If your international sound is already produced, you can do it via an auto mix. If it's only the voice to add on it, even if you have several voices which have a lot of different levels, we have improved it with the Llama system. If the remote commentary setup of the commentator is not well set, the Llama can correct it, and all the voices are quite equal in the mix, and it does the leveling as well on the international sound. That works very good. when you are in a control room and when the director says, okay, let's play the live touch. Okay, let's go to that interview. Let's go to the mix zone. I don't see for now how we can do it with, let's say, an automatic stuff. With a software mixer, sure, because you will still have a desk. And then, as we said previously, it has to remain a desk for the operator. Then what's behind? To be honest, he doesn't really care until he's able to get one microphone into his input and then push his output push the program to the output. That's fine. If it's a software mixer behind it, it doesn't really care. So yeah, software mixer for sure. Automated stuff, yeah, I think we still have to do progress on that and how we could handle it. And yeah, the decision of the director. How can we hear that from a machine point of view?
Yeah. Okay.
And Anthony, correct me if I'm wrong. I think we have AI, but not necessarily in a production sense. I think we have systems which analyze the outgoing feeds, if that's the correct language and that sort of stuff. Yeah, but it's not in terms of a production tool, but in terms of an analytical tool for reports.
For the monitoring
on our language and whatnot.
Yep, on our digital platforms, we have a monitoring tool which says, this is not Norwegian, this is Danish. Oh shit. Okay, we have to, when we have issues, they are currently working on identifying the sports. Hey guys, this is Norwegian, but this is basketball. You should have football or, so yeah, we are working on that tools because we have so much programs on the digital, so much programs, so much languages that we cannot have one guy in front of each.
Yeah. What is Ewan? Are you on here? Is he? There you
are. I am. Hello there.
Where do you see? Where do you see the kind of things that your guys are doing going? And I asked about Atmos or 514. Where do you kind of see that from your perspective?
It's from our side, from Llama Automech side. Everything essentially is possible. It really is customer led at the moment. So obviously we've been working with Anthony's team for the Llama Automix, and he's been absolutely. I'd like to thank Anthony and his team for supporting us in helping us develop the solution and overcoming the many challenges that we've all been talking about. But at the same time, it is customer led, and at the moment we have a 2-channel requirement. So we're working within those requirements. But moving forward, yeah, in principle, it's the same thing. It's just a question of scaling up, and it's a question of getting the clients and the requirements.
No.
So yeah, bring it on, I think is the expression I would put out.
Okay, fair enough. All right. Do we? No. I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead. You have to unmute yourself.
Hi, all of you. I'm going to use this fantastic panel to make a question because I produced the host podcast, but I never ask you. One of we have our internal commentary mix, etc. But I'd like to know, one of the challenges the guys have is, we have so many different sports. We try to target the loudness, but always, the loudness don't give us all the information we need for the mix. And now I know that you use a lot of auto mix and tools. What you need more, what we can has a house broadcaster that we produce 5.1.4 and also stereo and also a radio mix. But there is something that we could help you on all the auto mix and all that tools and process for you.
For me, I think in the auto mix, like as Anthony said before, if you get a good incoming feed, then it sits in the mix. It's already pre-mixed. In theory, they've already mixed it with commentary, so it's already got that in sort of ready to go sort of bed, with commentary designed to fit in it. I think that's, for me, that always, makes life easy for the auto mix, or even for any mixer. Actually, if I'm sat there with one commentary fader up with some international sound, that was also the case. You could tell who's probably really working the faders, and so you don't have to. And I think that's true in an auto mix fashion as well. The auto mix has to do less if it's mixed well. So I think carry on doing what you're doing, whether it's in stereo 5.1, 5.1.4. So I think that's producing a good mix from site has always been front and foremost the most important thing, I think, to generating the downstream delivery.
Well, because one of the things that we have been asking, and I think Carl is already on the panel as well, is sports effects, more and more and more. And fortunately, we better get more and more details in each sports. And sometimes the commentator overlap that sound effects, and it's all. I know the producers now facing this problem that the guys are talking over the top of the effects of the sport, and then we have not in our case, or a small part of our case, in our own commentators, and we try to manage that situation. But I'd like to know from your side if you have the same demands from your producers that we want to listen more to the sport effects, mainly on the snow or ice, in figure skating, the skates. I give you some of thousands of examples that we had during these two games.
I guess if you've got something with lots of transients, but they're short and not for very long, it doesn't matter so much, right? But if you've got big, loud, and it goes for a period of time and stops, and it's obviously quite hard. And I've been at events when that's happened. Even as the sound mixer on site, that's quite challenging anyway to then deliver it for your own commentary, let alone anyone else who's also receiving that audio. Yeah, and some of it's a matter of taste, isn't it? It's house style, production desire. I always liked loud effects because it makes it more fun for me. But not everybody does. I've been told many times, Pete, your effects are too loud, and so I don't care. But it's hard, isn't it? I think sometimes it's a matter of taste. Some people like jazz, some people like punk rock. It's still audio, it's still music, isn't it? So it's a matter of taste, and that becomes, I think, sometimes a production style, doesn't it? Really, which is difficult over a host broadcaster because you have to sort of cover all, right? So it's you can't make a very pointy product. You need to make a very accessible product.
Well, don't you, Pete? Don't you have to kind of hear the commentary in your head when you're mixing an international feed? You have to kind of imagine that you got to leave room for it.
Yeah, I mean, Alex, you get your opinion on this. It's not just me, but sometimes it's so hard, though. You've got the crowd aboard and there's nothing. You see, actually, I need to put a bit more gain in this and just to make it a bit more lively. And then all of a sudden it erupts and then you're already taking all the gain out again. So it happens sometimes. But if you've got a football match where the crowd are cheering all the way through, it's easy, isn't it? But when you have to really sort of work the faders, it's a lot harder. And I think that's always been true, whether it's been 12 microphones around a pitch or just two,
I think obviously, we tend to balance our internationals with commentary, and then you kind of do a submix for your international sound. So hopefully it kind of matches, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's an interesting question too, and Nuno, jump in on this, is we see this sort of, is there a role for AI here? We look at what Salsa is doing and you say, well, if you could parametrically say, this is what I want to have happen with these stems, I want them to blend in this way. Is that something that using AI that you could sort of set parametrically what you want to have happen? Alex, anybody?
Well, I mean, yeah. So I can jump in on that one. Yeah, I mean, I think definitely there is some kind of scope there in terms of being able to assist and potentially enhance certain elements of what you're doing with immersive, for instance. I think it's a difficult one because I think it doesn't apply to absolutely every sport in the same way. It's a very nuanced kind of thing you have to kind of be able to deal with differently, because I think certain people might use certain effects mics differently for different scenarios. And then kind of in terms of like immersive elements, so for like crowd ambience, I mean, it could be applied to that, but then maybe you want to apply it to kind of, things that are maybe more kind of repetitive, for instance. So I think there's definitely something that can be done and use cases for it.
Yeah, if I can just butt in there as well, Roger, I think with regards to Llama Automix, you can literally turn it on and it will give you a good quality mix, but at the same time, you are able to dial in your personal settings of the balance between commentary and IS as an example. And one of the big challenges that we have overcome is that whole issue of what we call the tennis or the golf example, where you've got those huge moments of silence. And how do you deal with that without riding the levels to such a level that you hear either the echo or you hear the planes above? And we've got programs that are actually programmed that will just get that automatically sorted right from the bat. So we've spent the last 3 years dealing with this on a day-to-day basis, so that you guys don't have to do that. So it is possible, and you can really dial in the sort of taste of that whole thing about balancing commentary versus IS. And you can save those as presets and just bring those up. So I just thought I'd jump in there with that.
And I think the feedback, I haven't listened to it as much as a lot of the operators do, but they will like the Llama mix. I guess these are kind of sometimes new parameters. Like we all know what a compressor does. We all know what a gain control does. And these are kind of new development, new technology. And I think that's not kind of in the soundman's psyche yet. And I think that's what, do you know what I mean?
Well, it's a really interesting point, because we are now introducing a simple view and a complex view where people can basically, because there's always going to be somebody that wants to twiddle a knob. Let's just face it. It was back in the old days, wasn't it? You had the fader that basically did bugger all, but you put it there because somebody wants to play with the knob. And we've now introduced sort of a complex view. We'll be introducing a complex view as well, where you can actually decide if you can change things and try and get it to taste. But at the same time, the idea is out of the box, you can get a usable result. And that's really the sort of philosophy behind it.
Well, and what we're talking about is moving that process upstream to say, what's the balance between effects and crowd and, whatever. But here's the thing about taking this back to IP, for heaven's sakes. Here's the thing is, in a way, does a unified IP infrastructure sort of enable this stuff? It's because it's easier to access the signal. We're not going from one box to another box. We're publishing the signals. So
I think this is also where software does have an advantage, certainly when it comes to the flexibility and the scalability piece. I think that's, that's clearly where we are aiming at. That's clearly our focus. But, obviously there are other opinions out there, but I think software does really have, it's such a good play for the IP space and also for the cloud space as well.
Right.
Okay. I guess the back end just shifts from a data center to the cloud, right? But the software's the same. So effectively, is it? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and everything that you can do in the data center, you can theoretically do in the cloud, and vice versa. You might argue that the cloud is adjacent to the connectivity. More adjacent. But Anthony, go ahead.
Yeah, I know that the main difference, at least on our side, between our private data center and the cloud would be the contribution to and from the cloud and the latencies that it would include. So that's we are chasing every day. We are chasing latency. So that would be our main issue for now. But right. What we've built, let's say this is almost a cloud for the Romanian operators. This is like if they were working with the cloud. The only difference is that it's a private network and it's a private data center. But the cloud, the AWS cloud, is not really physically in the cloud. It's a data center somewhere. The main question and the main question is, how do we get to this data center? What are the contribution lines to there, and which latency does it include? Essentially, that's the main question.
And does it vary as well? I guess, right?
Absolutely.
Well, and you know, we talk about latency also, but you know, you guys have talked about this in other discussions. Is there sort of latency, and latency has issues, and then there's synchronicity, and that synchronicity is very important. Latency may or may not be important. Well, I think this has been great. I just had a couple. If anybody else has anything I need to throw in, but Pete Walker, I also want to say to Pete and everybody else is sort of like, is this where we're going? And do we see this sort of the unified network thing as being just, is this going to be applicable?
Absolutely. I mean, it's here, it's now, and to a degree, whether you want it or not, you're going to get it. You know, this is a really impressive system we've been talking about today. But there's people buying individual small mixers that are native IP just because that's what they are now. And small systems like that, they're almost plug and play now. Like I say, it is here, it is today. We're just scaling our ambitions and making it more advanced and more sophisticated. But the success is with the operators. The operators shouldn't care, really, whether it's IP or not. They can benefit from it. They can get all the benefits of IP. But it's like we were saying earlier, it's still television at the end of the day. They still have their standard workflows. The audio is what's important. How it actually gets sent around shouldn't matter to the operator. And that's part of the success is that they have their familiar workflows. They're making television. They just have the convenience that they can do it from any physical location in the world. The production facilities don't even have to be in one location. So we're talking a lot here about how you've got your data center, which I agree is effectively the cloud. It's just your own private cloud, so you can manage it better. So you've got your data center separate from your remote locations, separate from your production facilities. But that production facility doesn't have to be one single entity. That can be distributed as well. And when it comes to latency, yeah, we've proven that latency isn't as important as we used to think it was. You know, obviously time alignment is key, but that's not an issue. The latency we can manage, and we can manage that with distributed processing as well. So you've got your data center DSP, but you've got your edge devices that contain small, minimal, tiny little mixers for your in-ear monitoring,
self-hears and stuff. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And then there's control latency. Let's not forget that as well, but that's even more forgiving. But if you're pushing a fader that's 1,000 miles away from the DSP, there's a finite amount of time it's going to take for that DSP to fade that signal up and down. But you know, we're testing that with hundreds of milliseconds of latency, and operators adapt to it. It's not a problem. So yeah, absolutely, this is the direction we're going in.
And we have a lot of experience of that with self-hears in Tokyo and mixers in wherever.
Absolutely. No. So yeah, it's here and it's going to evolve. And you know, there's question marks around, you know, PTP is a bit of a pain. Is 2110-30 here forever? I think it's probably here for a long time. But the key thing with the IP platform is once you have the infrastructure in place, you know, we can swap bits out. You know, NDI might become more dominant in some areas, but it's all utilizing in common hardware and common infrastructure. So you're not throwing away investment when the next iteration or improvement or a new protocol comes along. That just fits in with what we've got. So yeah, it's an exciting time. We're only limited by our imagination and our ambition, really.
Wow, what a line. Okay. Well, everybody, I mean, this has been great. And Anthony and Pete Mercer, I'm really, really happy you guys were able to share what you've been working on. And it's certainly, you know, it's certainly exciting times in terms of how we manage these productions and we move towards virtualization. Heather, do you have anything for us?
Well, that was absolutely fantastic. As you said, Roger, thank you so much, Anthony and Peter and our other fantastic speakers. That was great, really, really good. We could have we could keep going. This is the first time we've actually run over the 90 minutes, and let it go. It was worth it. I wanted to flag up your event, Roger. So Roger is hosting an event in Detroit, which I know some of you are already scheduled to go to. It's the DTV Audio Group's Advanced Audio Production Summit, which is on the 21st of July. If you do want more details, contact myself or Roger, and we can share with you. That's going to be a really interesting day. But apart from that, we're good. Thank you very much again, everybody. And thanks, Roger. You're a legend.
Well, thanks, Heather, for organizing all this. And, it's nice to see all you guys. I mean, I haven't seen some of you in a long time. I'm looking forward to those who are coming to Detroit. And if you're interested, it's an invitation-only event, obviously, and it's focused on A1s, but a lot of technologists involved. If you're interested in going, I can give you more details. But listen, it's really been great to see everybody, and thanks everybody for your time and everybody who listened in and all the great questions too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Cool. And I've just been reminded we've got our event in Paris, the OTT Summit. So I'll be over there. So it'll be good to see any of you guys there. It's the 15th of June at Parc des Princes. So sign up for that. Come along.
Sounds good to me. I'll go to Paris.
Yeah, cool.
All right.
Excellent. All right, guys. Thanks, everybody. See you soon.
All right.
Cheers.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.